Hey everyone, Andy Rafael from eTeknix.com, and today we're looking at this, the Asus ROG Strix Z690-I gaming Wi-Fi. Let's do this. I'm so sick and tired of just boring cases. They just all look the same. Why can't anyone do anything different anymore?
That's where you're wrong, little buddy. The Dark Cube case from Antec really breaks the mold, showcasing all your high-end components in style and with the ability to increase airflow with the interchangeable front panel. It really does give you the freedom to make your PC stand out from the crowd, while keeping things nice and small. Whoever said that having a small package can't be powerful? Click the link in the description to find out more.
So it's been a while since we did anything that involves unboxings, previews, anything like that. They always seem a little bit lackluster because you never get to see results. But don't fret, because we have got results coming on the 4th of November. So today officially marks the day where we can actually unbox stuff. And we have a lot of content, and I mean a lot of content. Whether you're into videos, whether you're into written, we have it all. So definitely check out the rest of the channel and also over at eTeknix.com. So I want to start with this. This is the ROG Z690-I gaming Wi-Fi. So as the name denotes, it's an ITX motherboard. It means it's going to be small form factor, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to pack a punch. Generally speaking, over the years, we have found that mini ITX boards have managed to cram in so many features, it's just absolutely unreal. So let's talk about the box. I mean, there's nothing really out of the ordinary. It's kind of what we expect. There's a few little things on here that you may not have seen before, like the fact that it's LGA 1700, the fact that it has PCI Express 5.0, and that it is Windows 11 ready. And of course it's Z690. On the back of the board, on the back of the box, we get the usual, the kind of, little bit of a rundown as to kind of what's going on. So we get our first glimpse of the board. We get the, fact that it comes with Wi-Fi, what the socket looks like, and a few other kind of standout features. But let's jump into it and actually see what we get. So, opening the box up, we of course get the motherboard, because you'd expect to get the motherboard inside a motherboard box. Underneath though, let's go through the accessories and kind of talk through what we actually get there. So, to start with, and I don't know why, Asus always seem to do this, a bit of a fashion accessory, but they give you this kind of belt buckle looking thing, which I've never really understood, but apparently people are into that according to Asus's marketing team. We also get our Wi-Fi antennas because the motherboard does have Wi-Fi 6E, so you have got that functionality as well if you're not close to an Ethernet port. We get what looks like a USB splitter. So I've actually started seeing this a lot with products recently because they do utilize the USB 2.0 connector on the motherboard, and being mini ITX, you're likely only going to get one of them. So this actually, being a Y splitter cable, just splits it out so you've got one and then into two. We also get on top of that, again being mini ITX, we all know how kind of fiddly that they can be when you're trying to get your front panel connectors on there. So you'd normally expect to get the kind of Q connector where you can put everything in. This is basically an extension beyond that. So instead of just having the little clip, you actually have this connector here. So this all plugs into your front panel connector on the motherboard, and then this goes out to all of the connectors. So we have our power LED, reset switch, power switch, and hard drive LED. It's not the longest thing in the world, but it's going to be more than enough to go from the motherboard and connect into where you need it to be. It just kind of takes that nitty gritty, fiddly kind of aspect out of it. We get some tweezers. Hopefully everyone gets a reference, but no, in all seriousness, we do get some cable ties, which is just handy for, keeping cable management to, the best of your ability. We also get two SATA cables, one of them being right angled, both having the clips on there as well to lock them into place. They're not braided or anything, they're just kind of your bog standard SATA cables. We do get this, and this is a really, really nice little feature. So anyone who's ever used an M.2 drive will know that the tiny little screw is really, I've never been a massive fan of them. The amount that I've actually lost over the years and had to get replacements is unreal. What Asus have actually done is they've got this little kind of clip which goes in where the screw goes, but it's got kind of a latch locking mechanism on there. It's just a really handy thing that, to some people, I guess they'd see it as a bit of an oversight. It just makes sense. We also get our usual kind of bump. So we get a driver CD for people who, for some reason, still have CD player, DVD-ROMs and that kind of thing. We do get a ROG, thank you for basically buying it, yada, yada, yada. We get some stickers as well, for those who dare. So there's a couple of things on here, obviously CMOS battery stickers, and not that I think you'd even be able to see the CMOS battery on this board, but there you go. A few other little stickers on there as well. make your case look pretty, make your bedroom look pretty, whatever. And then we get our motherboard manual as well. So on top of that, we do get a mystery box. And inside here is a PCB module. And what it looks like is it's actually going to connect onto the motherboard to give us functionality for 4 SATA ports as well as the front panel connector. So beyond that cable that I showed you where it kind of extends out, this obviously does that as well. So we'll keep that to one side and we will have another little look at that. But let's have a look at our motherboard and kind of see what's going on there. So typical anti-static bag. Let's move that out of the way. This is our kind of first glimpse of the motherboard itself. So it's mini ITX form factor. It is stacked, and I mean fully stacked. It's almost like the CPU socket is kind of just living inside this little void. On the back, we haven't really got too much going on. Back in the day, you maybe would have had an M.2 slot on there, but Asus have been really clever with their positioning of the M.2 slots, especially on this motherboard. Overall, I think the design looks really nice. It's really, let's say, basic looking in terms of the color scheme. Everything is pretty neutral. Neutral is probably a better word than basic. Everything is kind of black and silver, and that's about it. So there's nothing really standing out, which I always hate with motherboards when they try to dictate to you what color scheme you should have because it will have yellow on there or red on there or something like that. So this is quite neutral. In terms of obviously the CPU socket, I'm pretty sure I can get away with showing you this. So it has got an arm on there which you lift up, and then this side actually comes down. So a little bit different to kind of 1150X, more so kind of similar to, you know, X299 and the HEDT platform. But that gives us kind of our first glimpse of what the actual socket looks like, which 1700 pins. I mean, what did we really expect? Let's put that back on anyway, and we can get on with the rest of it. I don't want to talk about phases and power delivery and stuff like that because that's something that we will investigate into when we actually come to do our reviews. I mean, simply looking at it, we have 6 chokes at the top and 5 down the side, but it's going to be probably around 10 plus 2, something like that. Obviously, you can't count to just decipher it. I'd have to take the VRMs off, look at doublers and things like that as well. But to give us that power to the socket, we do have a single 8-pin connector, which is one of their Pro Cool connectors. I still stand by it. It's one of the worst names ever invented for a piece of hardware. Pro Cool. All it means is that it's got solid pins and it has this little extra metal shielding on there just to kind of, you know, reduce ESD and things like that. Being a mini ITX board, we do have 2 DIMM slots on here, and obviously this is DDR5 as well. I know that Asus are bringing out DDR4 boards, but as far as I know on the mini ITX, it's DDR5 only. At the top as well, we do have some connectors, which are our fan for the CPU, as well as a standard RGB connector. Not that anyone really uses RGB anymore, it's more about addressable, right? But I'm pretty sure we're going to have an addressable header somewhere, so we will look at that. We've got our 24-pin connector over here, USB Type-C, and then we've got these kind of USB Type-C looking connectors here. And this is quite interesting because if we put the board down and then we find this bit, we can actually slot that onto there like that. And basically we've got this kind of riser board or daughter board, whatever you want to call it. And this gives us 2 SATA ports at the top, 2 on the side just here. We got our front panel headers here, which obviously in conjunction with this cable we can put on like this, and then kind of away you go. So you have actually got a little bit more of an extension instead of just trying to get all the individual front panel headers onto this kind of end of the board when you've got your memory and everything installed. So quite kind of handy, I guess. They've really sort of thought about the design on this. Then there is a connector for a speaker and an addressable RGB header just on here as well. So there's actually quite a lot of features connected in just to this kind of one little simple PCB. I mean, why has this not been done before? We also have, being mini ITX, a single X16 slot down here, and not really too much else going on. There is a connector, a little header if you can see it, for a power button, and then we get onto the main thing. So obviously around the CPU socket, we have to have cooling for the VRM. So we do have a fairly chunky kind of VRM heatsink up here. We also have this one which kind of flows into the rear I/O of the motherboard, and then we've got this whole section down here. This is where things get interesting, and this is where I'm actually going to grab my handy dandy eTeknix screwdriver kit, which is available on store.eteknix.com, and show you kind of what's going on here. So on here we have obviously got this bit which flows down, and then this This is the main important thing because there's so much functionality underneath here. It's actually unreal. So there's a single screw here, and obviously this is a heatsink, so it is going to help dissipate heat. But as we know, PCI Express Gen 4, and I guess eventually PCI Express Gen 5 runs a little bit warmer than Gen 3. So what we have is a single heatsink here, and underneath is a thermal pad. Obviously remove the sticker off that. But once we take that out of the equation, we're then left with this, which is basically an area to put an M.2 drive. And it does have that little latch mechanism that I spoke about to lock the M.2 into place without the need for a screw. The only problem I have with that is the fact that this is basically toolless because you just kind of use your fingers, but then you still need a screwdriver to undo the screws to take the top panel off. So it's kind of half screwless, half not. I don't know, I would have liked to have seen maybe something with a little latch to actually pull that off, but maybe that's going to come, you know, at a later date on the next revision of motherboards for Intel or AMD. So we have obviously a single Gen 4 there. We can take off these other screws. So there's 2 screws in total there. And then that will actually allow us to release this next bit, which does have a connector on there. And if we take that off, we can see that we have another heatsink underneath. Now this is actually held in by kind of a little bit of a ribbon cable, and then there's a connector here which plugs into there. If we then unscrew this one, it's kind of like a triple decker design. Kind of imagine like a double decker bus, but another layer to it. So if we unscrew this one, we can then remove this heatsink, which is obviously going to help again with dissipating the heat of your M.2 drives. And again, underneath this one, there is a little thermal pad, again, take the sticker off. So we kind of have, I guess, a sandwich of heatsinks, one at the top, one in the middle. Then this reveals our next M.2 drive. So we do have the ability to have, obviously, 2 M.2s in there. As far as I know, they're both super fast speed, PCI Express 4.0, 5.0 whenever that comes. But we do also have some other connectors on here as well. So we have another addressable RGB header. We also have what looks like USB 2.0, a fan header, and HD audio as well. Now, to get to them connectors, you don't actually need to take all this off. They are kind of situated there, and there's enough room to get to them. And then we can see a few capacitors down here, which I'm guessing is for the audio module. If I actually unscrew this part, and like I say, there is another thermal pad underneath there as well. So again, your device is kind of being sandwiched. But if we remove this, we can take this whole module off, and you can see kind of this part of it is actually for the audio. So that actually stems out into the rear I/O, into our audio connectors. So you're going to have your microphone, your headphones, and your line in, I'm guessing. Line out. So line in, line out, and microphone. And yeah, there is kind of some markings on here as well. It's going to be a little bit hard to see on the camera, but it does say PCI Express 4.0 X4. And then it's got SATA and IRST. So you've got, again, quite a lot of functionality in quite a simple device. And this kind of seems like the growing theme with this board. 2 PCBs that have most of the functionality on it for connectivity and things like that. And then underneath we do have another heatsink, which obviously is going to be situated over the Z690 PCH, or the chipset. And then it's just a matter of kind of putting this all back together. So this can kind of slot in there, connects back in, and you kind of, you know, rebuild it again. So the last thing really that I want to talk about is the rear I/O, just to sort of talk through connectivity, what we actually have there, what it means for you. So there are 2 USBs here. One of them is branded for BIOS, so you can do BIOS flashback, and there is a little button over here, so you can just kind of click on that. We also have a clear CMOS button over here as well, so if you are having any issues, and we have actually got a full video talking through how to clear CMOS in many different ways, so definitely check that out if you haven't already. It's just one of them things you take for granted, but quite a handy piece of information. We have our Ethernet up here, so this is 2.5G. Gotta be honest, with Z690 I would have maybe liked something a little bit faster, but for the type of user who is using a mini ITX motherboard, probably makes sense that 2.5G is enough for the majority of people out there. We also have a super speed USB. We have Type-C down here as well, and Type-C here. And there is a little lightning bolt next to it, so we can safely assume that they are both Thunderbolt 4 ready. We have some more USB super speeds up here, and then we have the super speed USB 10 up here, so basically ever so slightly faster. Then we have our Wi-Fi 6E connectors, which obviously in conjunction with the Wi-Fi antennas that come in the box, away you go if you don't have Ethernet connections near you. Then we also have our line in, line out, and mic in, and also an SB diff as well. So we do have optical audio on here as well. Overall, that is pretty much the board, and hopefully I've done it some justice. Obviously, we will have a much bigger kind of deep dive of information on this board when the reviews hit, which is on the 4th of November. So you'll be able to see exactly how this performs in comparison to lots of other boards using an Intel Core i9-12900K. So definitely make sure you're subscribed so you can check out that. Now, obviously, if you did enjoy this video and you like these unboxings, we have actually got a lot more. So maybe you want to see something like the Asus Z690 plus Wi-Fi D4. This is actually a Z690 board with DDR4 instead of DDR5. So it might be worth sticking around for that. Or maybe if you want to go a little bit more on the extreme end of the scale, we have the Hero board. And then beyond that, yes, we have something more extreme. So definitely check out our video previews and our written previews over on eTeknix.com of all these products. Other than that, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know exactly what to do, and I will see you in the next one. See you later, guys.